So Donald Trump comes out on Christmas Day on Truth Social and he made a post where he started off, Merry Christmas to all, including crooked Joe Biden and his only hope, deranged Jack Smith. And then he just goes on to show us all of his anger, all of his hatred, all of his rage. And then he starts talking about the border and inflation, spreading all of his fear and all of his panic to his followers. And then he tops it off with a big mic drop of, may they all rot in hell, Merry Christmas. And I'm glad he did it. Hear me out. On a daily basis, Donald Trump reminds us of exactly who he is. He reminds us of what kind of person he is, even on Christmas Day. He couldn't on that day just say something nice about someone. He couldn't on that day just wish other people well. He couldn't just make a short post, Merry Christmas to all. He couldn't do it. He had to remind us of just what kind of person he was, even on Christmas Day. I'm glad he did it. I'm glad that his followers reposted it. I'm glad they thought it was funny. I'm glad they pumped their fists and said, give them hell, because they're reminding us on a daily basis of who they are and what they really support. Donald Trump is the front runner of the Republican Party. Donald Trump is the face of the evangelical movement, and that's what he posted on Christmas Day. So who are they to ever lecture us about how we should treat other people or how we should act? They believe that they're celebrating the birth of a guy who died for their sins. They believe that one day they will stand before that guy and they will give an account for everything they've done on this earth. And he will determine where they spend their eternity. They'll either get eternal bliss or they'll get eternal damnation. And on the day that that man was supposedly born, or they're celebrating his birth, they share and repost that kind of stuff, which shows me that they're not serious about any of it. It's just stage props to them. It's just a way to make them feel holier than thou. I got lectured on Christmas for saying Merry Christmas. It was pretty funny. I did a YouTube live where I called it a Christmas Eve show, and I put on the thumbnail, Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. And someone said, that's hypocritical. You shouldn't say Merry Christmas. You're just trying to cash in on the grift. Really? So all this time you've been lecturing us saying we should say Merry Christmas, and then when I do it, you're mad because I don't agree with you politically, because I don't believe in God the same way you do, so I'm not allowed to say it. And I'm cashing in on a grift. But yet you're buying pieces of this dude's suit. You're buying trading cards. You're buying flags with his head on Rambo's body. They remind us on a daily basis of who they are, and they've also made us better. Now, hear me out on this one. Donald Trump and his followers have actually made the rest of us better, and I'll tell you how. Before Donald Trump came along, yes, I talked about politics, and yes, I followed current events, and I kept up with what was going on in the world, but I didn't necessarily deep dive everything too deep. But once Donald Trump come along, I have read the Bible more since Donald Trump came into the political arena than I've ever read it in my life. I have studied the Constitution harder than I've ever studied it. I've studied how government works more than I've ever studied it. I'm more aware now of everything going on in this world than I've ever been in my life, and it's because Donald Trump shows us on a daily basis of what he is and reminds us of what we shouldn't do, and we have to deep dive in to be able to take it apart. When they come out and they start using their Bible to weaponize it against other groups of people, I have dived in and read deeper and figured out, wait a minute, this isn't even got nothing to do with what you're talking about. You're simply cherry picking this shit so you can weaponize it. When they've used the Constitution against other people, I've went in and studied how it works and said, wait a minute, you're using this to weaponize it against other people. So at the end of the day, I say let them keep doing it. Let them keep showing us on a daily basis just what kind of hypocrites they are, and stop beating ourselves up. We're on the right side of history here, and we're going to be. There was a time that I would debate the other side, and I would say to myself, well, I hope I got that right. I really hope I got that right. I hope I have done a good enough job here. Now, don't worry about it. We're on the right side of history here, folks. We are dealing with a deranged man and people who worship him, and people who just want to see a really mean guy be mean. That's what it is. Their number one policy is cruelty. They're all about cruelty, hatred, resentment, anger, and rage. They're all about projection. They're all about gaslighting. When they say that we have Trump derangement syndrome for calling him out, we need to flip that script and point it back and say, no, you guys have the Trump derangement syndrome because you give this guy a pass for everything. And on the day that you're celebrating the birth of your Lord and Savior, You couldn't even take a pause on that day to be a decent human being. How dare you ever lecture us on what we should say or do? Don't ever give me a lecture on, oh, you should say this or you should say that. No, you guys continue to show us who you are, and we'll continue to do better, and we'll continue to rise above it. And when you lose again, we'll be right here. And I've seen so many people say, I keep waiting for Trump to win so I can see your reaction, because that's all they live for. Just their hatred. Just their wanting to see him be mean to someone else, talk down to someone else. He empowered them to be able to do what they always wanted to do. Their granddaddies used to slap them in the mouth for talking like that. Their teachers used to call them down in school for talking like that. Their coaches used to put them on the bench for acting like that. And Donald Trump said, no, I'm going to put you in. You're going to play the game. Donald Trump empowered them to be that. They'll never turn on him. But they're going to always remind us of who they really are, and it's going to force us to be better.